Well, hi, Brooke. Brooke, it's right. It's Brooke, correct?
Yep, it's Brooke. Lovely to chat with you. Thanks for making some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I won't keep you very long. Just kind of an interview prior to the Goodyear New Year's show. So we can start with the basics. Tell me about the upcoming New Year's show.
Well, it's taking place at the Goodyear Theater in Akron. It's been the home to our, it was becoming an annual thing, a New Year's Eve show that the pandemic sort of broke up. So this is us finally reinstating that and trying to get back to the annual show. For the last 10 years, the band we kind of bopped around the state of Ohio playing a different city each year. And we thought we might end it or we were in Cleveland. I think we might have done 2 years in a row in Cleveland because it was just House of Blues. It's a great operation. And then Goodyear, the people of Elevation Group came around and spoke to us about the Goodyear, the Goodyear Theater. And it's just such a beautiful place. And everything was sort of, a one-stop shop. There's a hotel literally, 100 yards away. And it seems so, all-inclusive. You can come, you could fly in, literally take a car from the airport, and then just be like, I'm going to hang in this area, enjoy the concert, there's restaurants and everything. So it felt like the best place to do it. So we are now reinstating the annual New Year's show, and it's we've got as a opener we have J.D. Eicher, who's from the Northeast Ohio area, who's a friend of ours over the years, and Angela Purley, who is another Ohio native from Columbus, Ohio, who we just recently met, and her show blew us away when we just did a show at the River City Symphony in Marietta in Southeast Ohio. So she's a new friend. So JD is an older friend, and Angela's a new friend, but yeah, we're going to ring in the year with the Summit Radio. We're sponsoring the event, and they're going to be kind of emceeing the night. It's a night that I hope has, lots of fun and frivolity. Other than giving people a great show.
Very cool. So I didn't realize it was an annual occasion. It's got to be really fun to do. I feel like a New Year's event has got to be like, you just have like a very excited audience no matter what.
Usually, yeah. Well, especially like this is going to be a great one. Whenever it falls actually on New Year's, it's great. Because the thing is people, whenever it's I think, so last year we didn't do it because, we had heard enough about the protocols of, everyone was kind of bracing for Omicron and nobody wanted to go out and they were worrying about all that stuff. So we had done I think the last show that we kind of did for the year was on, right before Thanksgiving. We did that show in Columbus when the world still seemed safe enough and everything was okay. So we missed doing it because it is always a joy, but it's sometimes it works out where it's like, oh, we're going to do it on the last Saturday before New Year's. We're sort of we just kind of call it end of the year bash. So it's a fun show because we kind of feel like, at least in our experience, whether it's New Year's Eve or not, doing it on a Friday or a Saturday always seems to work best for people. So the fact that it works out that New Year's Eve is on a Saturday is awesome. So, we'll because, I think the last one that we did there a couple of years ago with Joseph Arthur, it was the last Saturday. So, there's no countdown. There's no moment of, Happy New Year. So we're not going to get we won't be missing that this year, which is a lot of fun. And the Summit Radio will be up on stage with us counting down. They've got a whole plan of, they're giving tickets away. Certain lucky ticket winners will be able to come up on stage and ring in the New Year with the band and the radio station. And yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, it's the only time of the year, that our band ever has a reason to play Old Lang Syne. And, which I don't sing. We just the guys do a fun instrumental version of it before, and then we'll play a few more songs and just kind of kick off the new year with a So it's like we'll play pretty much right up until right beforehand. So this radio station will come out. We'll do the countdown, and then we do, confetti blast and, balloons and all the hoopla, and we'll play a few more songs just to kind of carry everybody into 2023.
Oh, that sounds great. I was going to say, it's got to be kind of fun to pick a set list when you're like, all right, we're like going around a holiday.
Yeah, definitely.
Things a bit.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's, and again, it's one of the only times that you can do something like, not to show my age, but we usually play a little earlier these days, so try to be done by like 11 o'clock. But this is one of those nights where you're like, hey, we're all ringing in the year together. So we'll be going on just a little bit later. I think the doors for the place are like 7 or 8 o'clock, and then we'll have 2 openers, and then we'll go on and pretty much try to play right up until before the ball drops.
Excellent. That sounds like a good show.
Yeah.
All right. So it also sounds like you guys have a really nice relationship with the Summit. Are they the ones that premiered the newest single, Hey 84?
Yeah, they are. They've been wonderful to us. We really we found a really lovely home with those guys. They're just a wonderful community, and I can't say enough nice things about them. They've always been great to us, and we've known Brad Savage, who's the program director there, even before he was at the station. Back when we were, years ago, running around the country and trying to play for radio stations here and there as we're, on tour, and we ran into him in Tennessee. He was in Knoxville, and got to know him way back when. And so when we found out that he was coming up to the Summit, it was like, oh, this is amazing. And they've been growing, which is great. In a world now where it seems like so few things are, really prospering and growing, it's nice to see like, oh wow, like, they were Akron, Canton, and then they added Youngstown, which we get to even, so it's pretty much all of Northeast Ohio, and now they're in Southeast Ohio and Athens, and I think they're going to continue to go even further from Athens, and just because the last show that we had on our tour, which ended in early October, was we played with the River City Symphony Orchestra in Marietta at the People's Bank Theater. And the Summit was actually there. And I believe they're going to kind of start taking over Marietta College's radio station down there. So they're going to, so it's like getting even closer to like Huntington, West Virginia. And they're kind of, it's before you know it, they're going to be taking over, the entire, eastern side of the state. So.
No, that's amazing.
It's great, right? Because it's a people's station, it's like a listener-supported station. And, I feel like it seems to be the place where we've received the most, the most attention, and which is wonderful. Because we are an Ohio band, and they're, for people of Ohio listening to Ohio radio, so it's like, it works out. It really works out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you guys are, you're an Ohio group. How do you find the Ohio music scene? I feel like a lot of bands, especially some of the, newer ones, don't necessarily feel like they can succeed here without, I have to move to New York, I have to move to LA.
Right. Well, I feel like that's always what it's been. I would say now, again, I live, full disclosure, Brooke, I live in Brooklyn, and I've been here for 10 years. I've chased my wife out here. And I was lucky enough that our band was in a position that we could all kind of move into different places and still be together as a band. So Columbus, Ohio is where the band calls home. It's where we have a studio, and it's where our flagship facility of all things exists. And but we travel around, or we all live in different places. And so to answer your question about the music scene, I wish I was more in the know about the Ohio music scene and the Columbus music scene in particular. It's just, all over. I get intel from some of the guys that are like still live in the state, and they let me know that stuff. But like Angela Perlin was a really nice find. She played, she's been around for for a few years, and I had no idea. I mean, I'd heard her name before. And, to have her on the show is awesome. I mean, J.D. Eicher, he's a guy that, we got to meet through a couple of music festivals, and there's a floating music festival that our band does called the Rock Boat, and we've been lucky enough to be a part of it for like the last 10 years. And we'll be doing that in late January, and that's kind of where we met J.D., and we were like, oh, wow, like you're from Youngstown, Ohio, and, we play in Northeast Ohio, or, we're an Ohio band too, and so it just, friendship kind of grew from there. I think that with any band, you've got to travel. You've got to be able to get out. I feel like the world right now, we talk about these kinds of things with a record label and, management stuff. But, these are the days of, people feeling like, oh, you really have to do everything on social media. It's social media about getting plays and likes and all this stuff, which I know is important. But, and we're an older band. We've been together since 1996, but we cut our teeth for the first 15 years of our life, playing, 150 to 200 shows a year, concentric circuit touring around the United States. So we have relationships with towns all over America, and that's, I don't think there's anything that can replace that. You could like somebody, hear some music, or follow them on social media, and there's a connection there. But there's nothing like being like, oh wow, like I've been following these people for years. They keep coming. They've been playing at our town as they tour around for years and years. And there's a sense of devotion. I feel like that's not. I haven't found anywhere else. There's nothing like quite. If you go and you meet them there, if you can, take the journey and get to the place, people will receive you, and they seem to, be more loyal. Or we've just been very lucky to, in that regard, to be a band that's over 20 years old in the state of Ohio and have somebody, and be able to pull off an annual show, and something that is on New Year's no less, where everyone's going to be like, I want to go on a date, or I want to go do something else. It's a very specific thing, and it's almost. While you said it's fun, it certainly is fun. It's a fun way to ring in the new year. But it also, on some level, I almost worry that it's like, how do you get mystical? But I assume that people are going to want to spend that time with me when, you could be going and doing just about anything else. So we're really fortunate, and that, our fans will go out of their way and they'll ring in the new year with us. So that's why we always try to get as great of a show as we can, and we try to pull out all the stops and have, ring all the bells and whistles for them, because we appreciate it. And we don't get to play as often in Ohio. We play in Ohio just about as much as we play anywhere else. Well, I was going to say, which gets back to what you had made mention of, with like, it's hard. People have to move, or people feel like they need to move, in order to make it in Ohio. There's friends of ours from Cleveland, Wellesley Arms. They're a band from Cleveland. We've gotten to know them, kind of saw them from the very beginning. I knew them when they were all in, different iterations of that band, or, in other bands. And we all sort of grew up together and been touring together. And, they're a band while they tour just like we do in the United States. They had a song break in Europe. And now they, I think they've won like Grammys in Germany, or whatever the equivalent of that is in Germany, so it just goes to show, like, we live in a global village. Your music can get anywhere. But I do think it's important. You can't just stick around in a town and hope that, like, oh yeah, like, I'm just going to stay here, send my songs out. There's just, don't you feel like the world, like right now, there's just so much being thrown at you. It's so hard to decide. It's so hard to decide in everything. Like, not just music, movies. My wife yells at me, Brooke. Like, we get into these little moments where she'll go, would you stop looking at just, like, I'll spend an hour and a half just going through these, like, streaming services, clicking on things I like that I might watch later, just because I'm like, I haven't figured out what to watch. And she's like, what are you doing? And it's true. I'll sit for, because I can't decide, because there's so many choices. We're in a world where it's like, you have to have some connection, If it's like, the world of beer, you walk into this grocery store, there's so much stuff out there now. You go, oh my God, there's an entire wall. What am I supposed to pick? How do I know what I like? So you have to go with things like, you know what? My friend works at this brewery. This is a brewery that I know. I like that. I have a connection to that. So there I go. There's really like not a lot of wrong choices. It's just kind of like, what do you prefer? And so I feel like that's what I'm always hoping for with our fans, is that there's a lot of choices out there. And I'm, glad that we have a connection, and I'm glad that they, keep choosing to come out and supporting us, and, having fun, now again, resuming annual New Year's Eve bashes.
Excellent. I was going to say, I you clearly toured a lot, but, does it feel a little bit different to play for those Ohio audiences when you can? Is there something like, oh, I've known you for, 20 years now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it happens all the time. Like everybody gets jitters or nerves, like before you go and play a show. And then as soon as you go on stage, you look around in the crowd, you're like, oh, God, I've known all of you people. I mean, you're like, I know these people from so many different walks of life that it feels like it's a real community. And so many of these people have gotten to know each other because they've been coming so many, year after year. You want to hear something wild? So this is something that like I'm super proud of, and it's a strange thing to say. It's like kind of hard to get, or not everybody gets it, but because our band started 26 years ago, and we were in college, there were a lot of people that we were playing for way back then, probably when we didn't deserve the attention because we weren't probably very good. But we got, we were around, and people heard us, and people associated their college experience and living that time of their lives with our band. And then they bought our CDs, they bought our albums, and they went off and they listened to that music. And their parents heard it when they came home from school, and, and then these people grow up and they listen to the music, and it reminds them of their, the good old days or college or whatever, and then they play it for their kids as the kids have been growing up and the kids grow up with it. And we have this very strange thing that's happened now where we'll go to a show and there will be 3 generations of a family there because we now play all ages shows. So there will be little kids that are there, or not even kids that are not that little, kids that are going to college now. And, and they're like, my parents, I've grown up listening to you. And like, there's one family in particular that I'm thinking of, and, they would always, their grandfather would always say, you guys are one of the only bands we can all agree to listen to when we're all together, which is just funny. So, but it's a fun thing to see that, and while it does make me feel a little older at times, this last tour that we just had, we were out in Bend, Oregon, and which is a really cool college town. And I had a moment where, there were, we had a great crowd, a great turnout. I was really, really excited and felt like, wow, we don't play Bend, Oregon enough. This was like a really great turnout, and really excited about this. And a bunch of, beautiful looking women came up to us, and I was like, wow, this is great. How do you guys know us? And they're like, my parents have been listening to you forever. And then you suddenly feel like, oh, I'm like Neil Diamond or Kenny Rogers to you now. Like I just am like this, I feel way too young to be this like heritage artist, but it's an interesting thing. We started when we were kids. So while we are now, a middle-aged rock and roll band, it's wild to think that like we made an impact so long ago to those people that it's trickled into their families, and it's grown, which is wild. Never would have thought that, You always hope for those types of things. When you're a kid, you say, oh, I want to have world domination, and I hope everyone here knows my band. But as you get older and you tour around, I'm just happy that we have the community that we have, and I want to be able to service our fans and perform for those people. But it does like organically grow inside the community as people have kids and people get older and stuff. So people can expect that New Year's Eve, I don't know if there'll be any like little kids there, but I think you're gonna see a wide range, because it's always great to come home to Ohio and do a home state show, because people have been following us for the longest here. People have known us the longest out here, So it always feels like a homecoming style show And I think there's going to be a wide range of people of ages there.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's got to be a great badge of honor. I mean, I don't think many people.
It feels great.
Yeah.
And, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, 26 years is a while, but it's not that long. So you really did kind of cultivate, like, just the right pinpoint of an era. Like, when you're college age, you really do, like, that's your college music forever.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It really is. And then so what we did was we did that. And you can only play, the band started in Athens, Ohio, which is 100 miles from anywhere. So you quickly figured out, we can go play up at Ohio State. There's so many more music venues up there, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the university up there. They're a bigger university, so we'll play it there. So we did a bunch of stuff for the Ohio State University because they were, they all talk, and they're like, oh, you're a band from Athens. You guys are from OU. And then, next thing you know, it's like, oh, somebody from Bowling Green or somebody from Youngstown State or someone from, University of Miami. And we felt like this band that just ran around and played colleges. And I remember early on being like, it'd be really cool to play Cleveland. It'd be really cool to play Cincinnati, because as a kid who grew up outside of the state, I grew up in New Jersey, I only knew really those cities, barely. I mean, I knew Columbus was the state capital. I had no idea how big it was. And I didn't know, I just knew Cincinnati and Cleveland. And then we started to play those places. And, we would play the universities there. But you grow from there. And then concentric circuiting, which was just sort of like start widening the gap. And we started playing Pittsburgh. Found ourselves playing, schools in Pittsburgh and venues in Pittsburgh. And then, down to Huntington and Morgantown and, Louisville, out to Indianapolis, Chicago, and then you just keep widening the circle. We did that for, a decade and a half until we kind of got all over the United States. So there's some places we do better than others, but, that's why I always kind of refer to us as like we're a Midwest rock and roll band. Because it's just where we always seem to go back. It's where we're from. It's where we go back to. It's where we circle around the most.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And then what's great, though, is if you're persistent and you stick with it, people move. Those people get jobs in other places. And then you show up in a town that you've never been before, where you have no association there, and someone will show up. People will show up and they'll say, I went to, Ohio University, or I went, or I was in Indianapolis, or I was at Notre Dame when you guys played, And it's just wild to see how, if you can make those connections with people, and then people will, stick around. It's awesome. It's been the richest part of my life as far as, being able to get to do that.
Excellent. Yeah, I can't imagine you're in college going, I'm going to start a band and it's going to be this.
Right. I know. It's true. I thought, obviously, you're like, this will be fun. But I didn't think that was going to happen,
Yeah, were you like really into music growing up, or was that just something you kind of found your way into in college?
No, if you ask my mother that question, she'd say I've always been singing as long as I've been a little kid. But yeah, I sang in choirs my whole life, and once was in high school and rebellious, and formed a band. And right when I thought we were starting to get good, which we weren't, it was time for everyone to go to college. And then I went to college with like this specific goal of I will go to school, and in my spare time I want to form a band. And I did. And that's what happened. And it's been 26 years of, looking out and saying, what else could I have done? I went to school for performance. I studied theater. And it made it really easy to say, I'm going to stick with the music, because by the time I graduated, where my theater professors self-admittedly promised nothing. They said, we guarantee you nothing. You're going to leave here and pound the pavement. And you will most likely have to do that in New York or LA, And I thought, okay, so I'm either going to move to New York and LA and try to be an actor, or I can continue cultivating this band that we're already playing out of state. We're already traveling all around the Midwest. And that was still in the 90s. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. going to stick with this for a while. And here we are. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I've seen you talk about it a little bit before, but what is the origin of the band name?
Oh, it's well, the wreckage of lyrics when we were kids. But it's, it's primary colors. So, one cannot be the other. But, so it very well could have been yellow as well, but just, I think there's something so simple about roses are red, violets are blue. Red and blue just sounds right. So, but one can't be the other. But it's the human condition to try anyway. It's our way of trying to perform alchemy. And I felt like it's a really nice comparison to that. Being a bunch of kids of, no significance, who came from no family of significance, of no wealth or notoriety, that said we want to try to be in a rock and roll band. And everybody that you meet says, well, you should probably have a backup plan because it's a pipe dream and it never works. But somebody's got to do it. So, I always feel like people's stubbornness and not accepting the defeat, they break ahead and they find things that no one would think of. Like this week, Brooke, the people in California, the scientists in California found a way to create nuclear fusion by splitting an atom or merging two atoms with 192 lasers to create a gain of energy, which is that's insane. That's science fiction stuff. Excuse me, and while we're still a ways away, but that's something that's wow, nobody ever thought that was possible. Nobody thought we'd go to the moon. Nobody thought we'd go to the bottom of the ocean. These are the things that we do because someone said we can't do it. And we are sort of, we are formed by all of our limitations, and we try to work within them and around them. And much can be said for our rock and roll band. So that's what red wanting blue means. And I know that's a very flowery and long-winded thing. So usually I wind up telling people, it means the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. So,
Right.
And that was at a time, an era of bands had really long names. There were bands like Toad the Wet Sprocket out there, and they really good, long, unique names. And I wanted the name to be Riding Red, Wanting Blue, like a play on Red Riding Hood. And everybody in the band hated it. And they were like, that's a horrible name. I was like, no, I think it's cool. And then everybody ultimately said, if we lose the riding and just call it Red Wanting Blue, that's better. And then, so everybody was happy but me. And then I ultimately succumbed and looked fine. I guess we'll call it Red Wanting Blue. And then, but that was it. And then for many years, we had people calling us right around 4th of July. And they'd say, hey, we want to talk to Red, White, and Blue. Have you guys play our 4th of July thing. You guys cover Lee Greenwood and Bruce Springsteen. We're not a patriotic rock and roll band. So.
It's funny.
Yeah. But,
I don't know. The name's got to feel very interesting over the years as you kind of get closer to oh, this is really working out.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's weird. I don't even think about it anymore. It doesn't even, I have so many different associations to it now that when I say it quickly, and it's it doesn't, I don't think of what it actually, is. But I always love the idea of it being simple. I always like the idea of color, conjures such images, if you give a specific image, a specific word, most people will go, oh, I think of that. If you said, what do you think of when you think of coffee? I think of coffee. In some capacity or another, that's what you're thinking of. But if you just said, what do you think of when you think of red? You could say, oh, I don't know, cherry, fire truck, fire, hell, whatever. Conjures a lot of images, and I thought that was important.
Well, it's definitely a memorable name, so that's always good.
Good. Well, I'm glad you think that.
All right. Well, I will let you go here in a moment, but is there anything else you think folks should know about the upcoming show?
Just expect a great show. A great show. It's going to be, we're going to try to, we're going to try to raise the roof on the place.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it.
Brooke, I appreciate it too. Thanks for taking the time.
No problem. All right. Well, have a good day.
Hey, you too. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.